So this is the fourth installment of the BlackmarDiemer formation, so-called. And the part that we're going to concentrate on here is a game in which I missed a lot of opportunities because we're going to analyze it with the engine. And I already looked at it earlier, and it kind of shocked me as to the fact that I had the right idea for a number of moves and missed the execution of it, all those moves. But it just shows you the power of the kind of formation that exists there and what kind of attacks are available. And when we analyze this together, we're going to look at how opening the F file up really helps. And especially in this case, the bishop was on C4, and that's kind of unusual for me to be playing these like this. So we're going to move directly to this process. This is Carol Can, and Manuel Lesser called this the so-called fantasy variation. This person takes this, and we take back. Now let's see what the engine has to say about it. Engine says that this is an even game, pretty much, and black has a slight advantage. Likes bishop to F5. Okay, so now we play bishop to C4. Usually I wait for black to commit to play like bishop to G4 first, so that there's a bishop takes F7 threat, and now once again, the engine likes bishop to F5. Interesting, he locks his bishop, and this is a very conservative approach. And we just simply castle, and that gets our rook on the open file. We're a pawn down, and this is a good formation. Now, if you look at this formation, there are many, many sacrifices waiting to happen in these situations. For instance, if we're able to plant our knight on E5, it's easy to sacrifice on F7 and then follow up with a variety of checks depending on where our queens and bishops are, capitalizing on the fact that the bishop is now on C4. So that's another conservative play. Now the computer prefers putting the queen on E1. That's interesting. Or moving bishop to F4. I move queen to E2. Doesn't like that as much. Obviously, queen to E1 does have advantages. Now, castling, once again, there's very little change in evaluation. Computer's even suggesting now A4 is kind of a positional prevention of having him chase that bishop at knight. Now I pin. And now it's suggesting H6 right away, which the properly timed H6 is often okay. But he moves rook to E8. Now, rook to E8 turns out that that's not a good place for the rook. Obviously we have the F file being attacked by a rook already, and now it's looking more like an even game. We just continue natural type developing moves. Pardon me here. A knight on B to D7 is what it's recommending. Instead, I think that knight needs to head to F8 probably, or recapture on F6. Instead, he's decided to move his queen out to B6, and we see a lot of this sort of thing from the lower-rated players. I think this person was 2150 something. I don't really remember after seeing this, but already, as you see, after that move, we have knight to E5, which gives us an advantage of 1, and that's the first significant advantage in the game. So that's a mistake, and knight to B7 would have prevented that to some extent, but he couldn't play that right away, so that's what I play immediately, and now all of a sudden, look, it jumps way up. So this is becoming nearly decisive, but not for reasons I know. I didn't follow up correctly in this game. Now, if you analyze what's going on here, there is an attack that's possible already, and the attack that's possible already involves the pin on the F file. So what we're looking at doing is actually sacrificing, it's not a sacrifice of a bishop, but bishop takes knight. And since he doesn't want to open up his king position, he has to play bishop takes back. And then we move queen to H5, which creates an interesting sort of pin. And what that does is he can't play bishop takes knight, and the knight's attacking F7, the queen's attacking F7. And in reality, see, the rook is misplaced in that scenario. So if he did play bishop takes knight, F6 takes E5, he gets the queen takes F7 check, because now that bishop is technically pinned by the rook on f1. So the computer is wanting him in a number of iterations here to either move his rook back to f8. You can look at it, move his rook over to d8. And what's interesting about it is that that's to save the rook, and prevent this flurry of variation. And this variation continues to exist, and I'm blind to it. So now it even says Stockfish 8, who did the original analysis on this, said move it back to d8. That covers the rook. Think about that. So now he plays straight into it. I play bishop takes f6, and now moving the queen to h5 is much more lethal, because things like g6, as his wish answer, don't exist so easily. Because now the h-pawn is unprotected. So now it says bishop takes h6 is a flat-out winning move because of queen to h5 that'll follow. Before he did have g6, but that is terribly weakening and also allows advantages of other sorts. So I didn't take. I just retreated, which was foolish and bad, and it was a blunder, and I'm sorry I missed it. So now it suggests that black can just take the b-pawn. Instead he moves c5. Well, white's still got an advantage. We're not losing this game. Once again, we have bishop takes f6, and you can see practically every time, there's some iteration of something here. Bishop takes f6 followed by queen to h5 is lethal. And finally, I play it. So something dawned on me here. And now instead of playing queen to h5, I must play this attack as well. For some reason, I decided that rook takes bishop was the right move. And as you can see, queen to h5 has him up 7. So rook takes bishop. At first, we'll say, well, this is an even game here. And it takes engines a little while to analyze things. And, God bless me for having a deeper idea about this than the engine had. But I think if we leave this open for a while, you'll begin to see a jump. Oh, look, let's see, it went from 0 to 5.88 already. So I was playing for something a little different and deeper because I'm familiar with different types of attacks, not that queen to h5 pin thing. So it says he should move queen and bishop, pawn takes pawn, which is fine, but he takes back the rook. And now, once again, the engine is fanatical about being up 7 by moving queen to h5 and just allowing him to take the knight. And the reason that's true is because the computer has a pattern that it understands way better than I do, and that's that after the queen takes on h6, the king is hopelessly trapped. And the reason it's hopelessly trapped is, black can clean up on e5 and other pieces, but after knight to e4 and rook to d3, the king is in dire straits. So I check. Now, once again, the computer's going to say, well, we have an even game here at first, And obviously it says you got to move king to f8. He doesn't want to move headlong into having the f7 pawn taken by a knight or anything. So you'll see if we left this on that the evaluation will eventually come back up. And here it is once again, close to 6. So he moves there, and now queen to h5 again, which the computer is insisting is by far the best line. This becomes a much more complex line that allows white to take the h-pawn, and then when the king escapes to e7, and if he takes e5, then the queen checks on g5, various things like that. And the king is forced back to f8 basically to avoid discovered checks, and the king really can't escape. So it still likes queen to h5, but I found this move, which I consider to be a superior move, and at first the computer hates it. It says, well, black's way up. I just blew my knight. But after, just a little while, all of a sudden, once again, it reverses its little brain, and way up we come. And I think eventually, if you leave it here, it'll be up 5 or 6. So we don't have time in this video to see that. We're beginning to get into the 4s. Pawn takes, queen takes. Now it's decided, well, yeah, that's just as good pretty much as the other one. Well, the other one had up 7 or 8. This is up only 4 or 5. So in either case, that's a definite giant difference that wins. So white is in a winning position. And the reason why is in this particular formation, what we've got is black is playing a rook, a knight, and a bishop down for the most part. Well, that's too much. That's 11 points sitting in the corner that's never moved. And basically it's sitting there because he moved his queen once too many, and because he was busy taking my gambit pawn. So um, it says he can move his queen back. It's not going to help. He moves his rook, and now, the way that I play this attack is imprecise, as it always is, but winning. So now we have queen takes, rook interposes, rook checks, king moves up, and now this was the automatic move that's easy for me to find for some reason, bishop to e2, which I found over the board quickly, and he's pretty much hopeless. Now you get, instead of the queen, I play the bishop. He plays king to e7. Now it says queen checks is best, which amazingly I played instead of taking the rook. And he moves over. This is the process of you want to try to checkmate him at this point. So d takes c5 check, and as you notice, what I'm interested in is win of a queen or mate. And it says there's a mate in 11. If the queen takes, he gets the e4 check. If the king takes, he gets the a4 check. So I took the rook instead of checking. He moved the king. And then, of course, that was a discovered check, so I had to move my king. But amazingly, after I move my king, there's a mate in 7. He moves his knight. I move my queen. I doubt I find a mate in 7 here over the board quickly. So he moves his knight again. Check, 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 check. Mate. Game was played to mate. So it was imprecise, but it shows you the nature of this kind of attack, and once again the power of that formation.